if you and I stepped into the kitchen together, all right, we put on our aprons.
Say yes, chef.
Yes, chef.
And we started cooking up a tied in #1 overall finish in fantasy. There would be 4 key ingredients we would need. And the player I'm bringing you today already has 3 of those 4 ingredients.
Yes, chef.
Let's talk about some players that are primed to shock the fantasy world in 2024. In today's video, I'm bringing you a player from every position as a dark horse #1 overall finish candidate, okay? All of these players need to be drafted outside of the top 6 at their position, and I will give you a case as to why there's a chance they are a dark horse #1 overall finish. So let's start at the quarterback position. We'll go all the way to tight end. Do me a favor, smash that like button. Like goal today is 100. With your help, I think we can get there. All right, my dark horse quarterback 1 overall finish. Remember, this guy has to be drafted outside the top 6. That would be Jaden Daniels, who is currently my quarterback 11 in fantasy football. Let me ask you guys, what do quarterback 1 finishers have in common in the last 5 years in fantasy football? Well, in 4 of the last 5 years, the quarterback 1 finish has had at least 700 rushing yards or 8 rushing touchdowns, right? Josh Allen with a lot of those, and of course, Lamar Jackson in 2019. Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate outlier in the last 5 years. He just went crazy through the air in 2022. Who are some quarterbacks, now that we know that are capable of a 700 rushing yard season or an 8+ rushing touchdown season? Josh Allen, of course, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson. He is probably the easiest dark horse quarterback 1 overall finish candidate, but he's not being drafted outside the top 6 in most platforms at this moment. Daniel Jones, as crazy as it sounds, has done it before with the Giants. And then Jaden Daniels as well is a candidate to be in that category. Remember, Jaden Daniels was a nightmare at LSU. It's going to be so difficult for defenses to defend him, both through the air and on the ground. In the pre-draft process, I most commonly compared him to Robert Griffin III. If you remember Washington in 2012, he was a fantastic fantasy asset, top 5 finish. And if you look at Jaden Daniels at LSU, back-to-back years with over 1,000 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. Back-to-back seasons. In the entire SEC last year, even if you include the running back position, Jaden Daniels was 3rd in total rushing yards in the best conference in football. And by the way, in the 153 years of college football history, he was the first player ever to have 350 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in a single game versus Florida, a prestigious college football school. Okay, so clearly, it's unlikely he's going to finish as the quarterback 1 overall, but he is my favorite dark horse candidate that you can get super late in the draft. A-Rich is a very high pick. He's a very obvious one, but I want to know from you, who is your dark horse candidate for quarterback 1 overall? Okay, running back position. I'm very excited about this one, and I think this is maybe my most confident take on today's video. Derrick Henry is my RB1 overall dark horse running back. We've already seen him be the RB1 on a points per game basis in the past. That was in 2021 when he averaged over 24 points per game. And in 4 of the last 5 years, he's finished as a top 4 running back in points per game. Here's what those last 4 years had in common and what last year in Tennessee did not, okay, in 2023. In the last 4 years where he finished top 4 in points per game, he had at least 20 or more rushing attempts a game, at least 96 rushing yards or more a game. And he scored a rushing touchdown in 80% or more of his games. The good news is Derrick Henry just joined one of the league's most rush-focused, rush-heavy offenses this last couple of years, right? In the Baltimore Ravens. Last year, the Ravens in 2023, 1st in rushing attempts per game, 1st in rushing yards per game, 4th in rushing touchdowns per game. Does that sound similar? This is a match made in heaven. Derrick Henry thrives on rushing volume. The Ravens thrive on rushing volume, right? And he's going to have plenty of opportunities to score in the red zone with those rushing touchdowns because last year he's joining a team who was 4th in points per game. Meanwhile, the Titans were one of the worst teams offensively in 2023. That's why he took one of those big steps back. I mean, remember last year, Gus Edwards was 3rd in rushing touchdowns amongst running backs in this offense. Only McCaffrey and Raheem Mostert had more. Is this a hot take? I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Derrick Henry is going to lead the league in rushing touchdowns in 2024. Book it. Put it on the board, if you will. All right, we're going to get into my wide receiver 1 and tight end 1 dark horse candidates. But just to let you know, you don't have to wait until September to play fantasy football. We're playing fantasy football right now. Come join us over on underdogfantasy.com. You can get into real leagues, real money, real tournaments, real drafts. It's extremely fun. Maybe that's not your thing. Well, they've got player props over there as well, which they call pick'ems. You can choose over, under on daily fantasy sports and also season-long formats like Drake London and Amari Cooper season-long stats. You can bet the higher or lower. If you haven't signed up yet, use the promo code LAND. We're going to match your deposit 50% up to $250, which means that you're going to get $125 free on us just for using our code. So go sign up in the description below. Okay, moving on to wide receiver. I'll be honest, wide receiver was one of the most difficult positions to find a dark horse candidate because I feel like it just feels like it's going to be one of the guys at the top. Like there's no way around it. But in the last 5 years, to be fair, remember Cooper Kupp did not get drafted in the top 6 and he finished as a wide receiver 1 in a season. And then Michael Thomas as well, drafted outside the top 25. He had a wide receiver 1 finish in the last 5 years. So my dark horse candidate for wide receiver number 1 this year is Drizzy Drake London. Look, Drake London already has the target share needed to produce a wide receiver 1 overall finish. In the last 2 years, Drake London is averaging 25.5% of the target share for the Atlanta Falcons. He has been peppered with targets. The issue has been not Drake London, but quarterback play and a low passing volume offense. Quarterback play, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota over the last 2 years as his starting quarterbacks. In those 2 years, those guys weren't even top 32 in PFF passing grades. There's 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. They didn't even sniff the top 30, okay? And low passing volume offense is what Drake London has been a part of for the past 2 seasons. I mean, if you compare Atlanta's offense in the last 2 years in passing volume and the Vikings offense, the reason I'm doing that is because Kirk Cousins is now going to be Drake London's quarterback, and he's got coaches like Zach Robinson from the Rams who are a part of high-powered passing offenses. In the last 2 years, the Falcons averaged out around 473 passing attempts per game. Near the bottom of the league, right? One of the 4 worst teams in the league, or lowest passing volume in the league. If you look at the Vikings in the past 2 years, they've been top 4 in the last 2 seasons, averaging 652, almost 200 more passing attempts per year for the Vikings. Imagine what London could have done as the wide receiver 1 in a Kirk Cousins-led offense in the past 2 years, right? If Drake London's averaging 25.5% of the target share, and the Vikings averaged 652 passing attempts, and that kind of offense, Drake London could have seen about 166 targets or so. Like, it's just kind of showing you where it could be as the change of pace is going to be there for the Atlanta Falcons. Remember, they have a new offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson, the same guy who from 2019 to 2023 worked as a quarterback coach, a wide receiver coach with the Los Angeles Rams, was there for Cooper Kupp's wide receiver 1 finish and the surprise Puka Nacua season we saw last year. So I think, I'm scared to draft him, but if I have to give you a true dark, I feel like Drake London is a dark horse to be the number 1 overall finish. All right, last position, tight end. I don't think we're giving enough respect to this tight end, and it needs to stop. If you and I stepped into the kitchen together, all right, we put on our aprons, and we started cooking up a tight end number 1 overall finish in fantasy, there would be 4 key ingredients we would need. And the player I'm bringing you today already has 3 of those 4 ingredients. That tight end's name is Evan Ingram. Why in the world is Evan Ingram not getting any respect in the draft community? All right, let's talk about those 4 ingredients. Ingredient number 1, you have to be top 5 in targets amongst tight ends. Last year, Evan Ingram had the most targets of any tight end. 16 more targets, in fact, than the second highest targeted tight end in 2023. Ingredient number 2, he has to be top 5 in receiving yards. Well, Evan Ingram was 3rd in receiving yards last year. Only Kittle and Kelsey had more. Ingredient number 3, do we have a history of top 5 finishes? Because that could suggest that our ceiling is up there. Well, last year, why is no one talking about this? Evan Ingram was a tight end 2. He finishes the tight end 2. In a points per game basis, the tight end 4. Guys, that is crazy. Why is no one giving respect to Evan Ingram? Ingredient number 4. This is where Evan Ingram falls short. You need at least 7 to 10 receiving touchdowns. Last year, Ingram had 4 receiving touchdowns, did not cut it, did not fit the bill. And think about it from this perspective, guys. If Evan Ingram went from 4 touchdowns last year to 6, if he just added 2 more touchdowns, he would have finished as the tight end 1 overall over Sam Laporta. Evan Ingram should be getting a lot more respect in the fantasy community. What if his touchdown equity takes, a spike up this year? What if he has one of those spike years that we see from a lot of tight ends? Man, Evan Ingram is a true dark horse this year, and he's one of my favorite picks in fantasy football. So, what do you guys think? Let me know. Obviously, if you watch this video all the way through, I'm hoping that you understood that it's unlikely any of these names finish number 1 overall. But it's a fun exercise. It's to show you players that I think are good picks, and I want to know what you think. Let me know your dark horse finishes at every position down below. I appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you very soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.